All right. Looks like we got audio. What are we doing today, folks? Can you see my Ninja blender? Maybe? See my gloves? See that 2-pound bass? There's a 1-pound bass in here. And I've got 12 pounds of blackstrap molasses. And I've got a small container of lactobacillus. And I've got something to mix it up in. And this wicked Ninja blender. We're going to chop this thing up. We're going to chop the other one up. We're going to put it in a blender. We're going to grind it all up until it's nothing but puree. And then we're going to put it in, well, a pail. We're going to add an equal weight of molasses. So I've got 2 pounds of bass. I'm going to weigh out 2 pounds of molasses. We're going to mix it all up in there. Once it's mixed all up in there, I'm going to put a bubbler, an airlock device on the can's lid. And I'm going to put 3 times the amount of water into this pail. We're going to stir it all up and we're going to let it ferment. And in 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to have some great fish hydrolysate. Y'all want to see us do it? Let's do it together. Okay, so here I am. I've got my trusty Fiskars garden knife. And it was sharpened recently. You want to make sure you start out with a sharp knife. And basically, all I'm going to do is cut up the pieces of the fish, put them in the Ninja blender, and we're going to grind it up into little pieces. It'll be a puree when we're ready to use it. If you grind it up into a puree, it's gonna break down in the barrel a whole lot faster. If you've got big gigantic pieces in there and maybe the head is just sitting by itself, it'll take longer. It will break down, but it'll take longer. And I've got some fertilizing to do. I've got some soils to amend. I've got some compost tea to make, and I need this stuff. And I certainly don't want to wait until the day I have to apply it to make it. Make sense? So here we are sitting, just shy of maybe 6 weeks before we start planting things in our little seed buckets inside the greenhouses. And we're not quite at that point yet, but we want to make sure we've prepped out the materials that we're going to use to support the growth of the life that we put in play. Simple enough? Pieces, they don't actually have to be really, really small. Go ahead and we'll pop the top of this. We are going to put a little bit of water in here to make grinding easier. I don't bother descaling. It's no point. Probably don't like looking at this guy while I do that, so I'll turn him around. I don't care if there's something in the stomach either. That's not that important. Because we're going to ferment it all. Another piece maybe. Kind of tough to get past the scales a little bit, but once you do, a little bit of pressure and you can get through the bony parts. And what we're going to do, take maybe one more. I can assure you, there's plenty of people out there that can cut up fish a whole lot better than Creedmoor Fury can. Make one more cut. Making sure, keep your hands well away from the knife. Probably a lot of chefs out there looking at me like, what in the world is this guy doing? All right, so we're going to go ahead and get a little bit of water for this. Sometimes these bigger fish take a little extra effort. You want to start out kind of slow. Okay, so here we have it. I was able to get 3 pounds of fish cut up and put into the, well, super awesome Ninja blender. This thing has these really wicked blades inside. I'll include a picture of this if y'all haven't seen these before. And it works really, really good for this. It's really broken everything up into little tiny bits, and we're ready to roll. But let's do a little quick math. I like to use 3 pounds of fish because, well, 1 gallon of water is roughly 9 pounds, and that's about what we want. I did put a little bit of water in here to get this to roll, so I think we're still in range pretty good. And that water, I can talk about that real quick. The water that I'm using has no chlorine in it. It's completely pure of chlorine. It's not distilled, but it's from our well, and it's slightly acidic on the pH scale, which is actually going to help because we're going to be using an acid-loving bacteria, and it's going to just make things just like it likes it. So after we're done mixing these items here into the pail, we're going to also put in the equal amount, 3 pounds of blackstrap unsulfured molasses. It's one of the key ingredients. It's really super inspirational for the biology that's going to be consuming and breaking down the fish into the hydrosilate. I say that right? Hydrosilate. And we want it to be a part of it. So y'all can find your own lactobacillus online. I'm sure there's plenty of retailers even near you. You might be able to support some local economy by visiting either one of the vitamin shops nearby or maybe your favorite health food store. I highly suggest you taking that step first. Of course, not a deal breaker, because if you want to use something like a fermented food, kombucha is one of them, I believe, that you can use. Again, maybe I didn't say that right. Accept my apologies if you're really, really good at saying that one. But that does already have some fermentable materials and metabolites and other things in it that are really, really good. Plus, it has the bacteria that we want to initiate this sort of fermentation process. All right, so let's stop blabbing. Let's remove the lid. You'll notice there is some there. And before I go tossing that into the wind, what I'd rather do is use some of the water we know that's going to go into it to just gently wash it into the pail. And I realize that making fish hydrolysate is probably not for the faint of heart, because you have to take a fish and put it in a bucket and ferment it. But this is going into our process for growing foods. We're eating this fish. I don't even eat fish, but in this particular case, I'm going to eat it indirectly through my crops. Okay, this has to twist to come off, and maybe I can show you all what that looks like. Okay, it's quite a bit in there, just about 3 pounds. Oh, the heads are in there because I didn't want to put the heads in here and grind them up too. But by the time this is all done, I'll show you all the grinder too, because it just fell in there. But by the time all this is done, there won't be anything left. Oh, that was probably loud. Okay, so that is essentially the business end of the grinder, and you know, it hit some fish scales, it hit some fish skeletons, and it still looks brand new. So yes, I definitely got to give at least the people at Ninja a couple thumbs up for what they made here. Let's rinse it a little bit, set it off to the side. I'm outside, so this stuff can pretty much just be hosed off into the garden. The garden's right there. Believe it or not, also want to mention, I just caught this fish. so it's not stinky. How do y'all like Creedmoor's new glasses? I got bifocals now, so I can see a little better. Okay, so there you have it. Everything's rinsed, everything's looking good. The rest of the stuff will get cleaned up in my sink basin here behind me and washed up and returned. Safely. Okay, the last and final step. By the way, this thing has little suction cups that keeps it on the table, stuck pretty well. That's why I didn't want to do it on the garden bench behind me, because it probably would have wandered all over the place. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use this scale. It's called the Silvercrest, and it works really well. Y'all know I don't do reviews. I'm just telling you what I'm using. And what we're going to do, we're going to put 3 pounds, 3 pounds of molasses. Of course, this is first time I'm opening the molasses. I'm going to remove the seal. It's sealed for my protection. You know, heaven forbid I get some of this blackstrap molasses on me. Give it a little shake. It's so thick, it's not going to matter. God. Kind of hard to see out here. Looks like I'm coming up on 16 ounces. We just passed it. Okay. That's about it. May look like a lot, but it's really not. It's about 3 pounds. We're just going to pour it right in. So I don't worry that much about leaving a tiny little bit inside the container here. Plus, it's pretty easy to mix it with a little water. So y'all are probably wondering about the fish heads that are in there. They're going to be fine. They are absolutely going to dissolve into nothing. All right, what I'm going to do is give this a little mix up. It's already super, super dark, almost like a brownish red color. Everything's mixed pretty well. Another cool mention, big gigantic spoons, we make them here at the workshop. Now, I am going to clean my hands up a little bit, so I'm going to pause y'all, go clean up my hands, and then I'm going to handle the bacteria additive, the inoculation, with clean hands. All right, so it's kind of important to note, my garden lab is right behind me, so I do have some access to some things that maybe many of you might not have access to. Certainly with regards to keeping things clean and sanitary. I have this small container that I keep alcohol in, and because I do not have the desire to get anything outside of what's in this container into this container, I've taken the time to make sure that the spoon I'm about to insert into it is clean, and that the lid is going to be open only as long as it needs to be for me to make a withdrawal. So basically what we're looking at here is I'm going to take the bacteria and I'm going to put 1 scoop of this, and this is highly concentrated. I'm going to put 1 scoop of this per gallon into my solution. My solution right now sits at about 2 to 2.25 gallon. Based on me looking at this 5-gallon pail, it's about what it looks like. And I'm going to go ahead and put 3 of these in there. It's going to get mixed again, and I'll show you how we protect it while it ferments. Yeah, I do like to work a little bit clean even though I'm outside. Do a lot of work with fungi, and you really have to be somewhat disciplined to culture them in the ways that I do. So I'm going to try and do the same thing here. I'm going to stay out of the airstream and simply pick one, another, and then one more. And that's it. Now this is going to get closed up, sealed up again, nice and tight, safe. And we can mix this. I'll give it one gentle tap to drop the rest, and we're going to stir it. Don't need any other sugar. I've seen recipes for this stuff where they call for using sugar. It's just not necessary. What can I tell you about this? This is over a year's worth of fish hydrolysate for my 8,000 plus square feet of garden beds. So I won't need any other fertilizer outside of this to fortify my teas that I make. Y'all have seen those teas. This is basically it. If I want to initiate some hyphal growth, this is going to be the key. If I want to feed some tomatoes, this is going to be the key. If I want to feed my brassicas, again, this is going to be my key. And I can start with doses that are as low as 1 tablespoon per gallon of clear chlorine-free water in my mixtures and solutions that I feed directly with. I can apply this as a drench, or I can apply it as a foliar. If I apply as a foliar, I want to apply it when the sun is not about to roast the plants. Make sense? If we can do that, we can stick to the edges of the day, I think we can be fine. Typically don't like to leave my plants soaking wet at night either, because where we are here, that's not always a favorable idea. But there's going to be so much good stuff that's in here. It's just so natural. You know, for years and years and years, I've promoted the use of Alaskan fish emulsion. But that's an emulsion, and it's been sanitized and it's been heated, you know, to become what it is. And as such, it doesn't have the life. It doesn't have the biology in it. It doesn't have the level of proteins or enzymes. It just doesn't have as much wholesome goodness as this. All right, y'all have seen it here. It's literally that simple. Basically 3 steps. I'm going to introduce you to my airlock real quick. It's a fermentation airlock. And all it does is it separates the outside atmospheric air from the inside where we want good proper fermentation. This pail is going to stay outside, likely in one of my greenhouses. So what I don't want is I don't want it to have flies and things getting inside the solution. I don't need them. We already have the biology that's necessary for the fermentation process. And this doesn't have to be super well sealed either. It's just going to basically sit on top. I'm going to enter a small amount of water into this, just like that, to create the airlock. Put the lid on, close it, cover everybody else up, seal them off. We got water fresh for another task. We got already the process of fermentation going on right here. What I'll do is I will take a pen that I should have here, and I'll go ahead and I'll put today's date, and I'll put an F and an H for fish hydrolysate, and then this will get stuck right on the bucket. I mean, it's not going to be too difficult. Sorry, I got no fingernails. It's not going to be too difficult to know what this is. For the first couple of weeks, it's going to smell, probably. So if you're thinking about doing this in your garage, I don't think that's a great idea. But by the time it's completely fermented, you're going to know it, because it's going to have more of an organic-y kind of a gardeny smell. It's going to be less like fish. When things ferment down, a lot of the volatile organic compounds, they change significantly, and the odors that you used to smell won't necessarily be there. This is going to be high in sulfur. It's going to be high in calcium. It's going to be relatively low in potassium and phosphorus, but the nitrogen content will be in and around 5. So we are going to be somewhere in that range, but it's going to be more microbiologically active than something that was heated like an emulsion. So if I've been telling y'all to use the fish emulsion, I'm telling you that this is better because A, it doesn't cost $40 a gallon to make. That much molasses cost me $4 or $5. That's it. The fish caught me, I caught the fish with a worm, a plastic worm. I used the same worm for both fish, so that cost me basically 50 cents. And, you know, the pails you can get, this is repurposed pail. This little airlock, that cost about $4 at the local brewer supply. So great tip on that. What other tips? The Ninja, I'm not sure where my wife got that, but you can probably use something else. Or as I understand, you can just cut up the fish parts and drop them in there. I really want to be certain that this is going to go down quickly because I'm going to need to use this stuff to prep some beds. So I want to make sure there's nothing that's going to slow the process down. In a couple of days, I'll take a look and I'll make sure that the process is moving along beautifully, and that's about it. I might stir it, I might not. In the end, what's going to happen is it's all going to be really, really brown, really deep brown, and I'm going to pour it into jars or 1 gallon containers similar to this. It will keep, a gallon will keep up to a year for no problem, with no problem. So, you know, that's my plan, to use it over the course of the year. We're phasing out the fertilizer that costs us money, and we're phasing in the fertilizer that costs us less money. And in all honesty, I believe the environmental impact is less with this right here. So it can be done simpler, it can be done easier, it can be done many other ways. Please feel free to tell me in the comments what you think about the methods that I've used to put this together. And if you've got suggestions for improving the process, put that in there too. If you've got criticisms for something that I did, or if you're from one of those organizations that doesn't like humans fishing, know this: Creedmoor Fury does have a lifetime fishing and hunting license. But I don't eat fish, and I don't eat those animals because I don't hunt my chicken. So anyway, subject for a story on another day. Give me a thumbs up, give me a like. Appreciate it just a little bit if you did. And if you know somebody who might benefit from this information also, go ahead and forward the link to them so that they can use it to at least put their own ideas together and see if it's something they might be wanting to get into. Did I just say wanting to get into? Folks, I'm from the South. I can say that. Check it out. Hands are still pretty clean, right? So work clean, work smart. Even the blood and the gore has been moved away. And once everything's picked up, I'll just hose all this off, and I'll keep my dog away from it because my dog is going to be out here licking the ground. So peace and goodbye.